Hello and welcome to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. We've got some really exciting topics today. We're talking about market volatility, all-time highs in the indexes. What can you do to make sure that you continue to be successful in your retirement? I'm joined as always by my friend, father-in-law, and business partner, Mark Stimpson, but we also have a fresh face here in the studio, Mr. Stephen O. Flynn. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great, thank you.
We're really excited to have you here. Maybe for our audience, you could share a little bit about who you are, what you do at Elevated, and what your background is.
Well, firstly, it's amazing to be on this side of the camera. Being a big fan of the show, I also listen to the radio and the podcast in the car. So yeah, it's a fantastic time to be here and with Elevated. My background is in financial services.
Great.
You may hear an accent. I'm from Coventry, England.
No.
Yeah, Coventry, England. So yeah, moved here about 10 years ago, Pacific Northwest. Been working in investments since, for about 10 years now. So.
Oh, great, great. Well, we're really excited to have you on the team. So Steve, you are our newest advisor at Elevated Financial Management, which is great. We're excited to spread some of that work around and bring the best that we can to our clients. And I have to admit, your accent really seems to bring up the excitement in the office, so that's always nice to have.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here.
In fact, I'd like to add to that. I think having Steve in the office now has really elevated the rest of us.
There it is.
Right? I just want to say to our viewers, we're so engaged with helping people, teaching people at the local colleges. To have Steve, I know many of you viewers are thinking, with that accent, he's smarter than the rest of us, and that may or may not be true. We're still finding that out, but we love having Steve around. So again, he's added a wonderful dimension to our office, and I think, team is what we're about at Elevated, right? We want to take a team approach with each and every one of our clients, and adding you, Steve, has been wonderful. So again, we welcome you here, and we're glad to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you, Steve. I think we should mention too some other fresh faces that we have at the office, which is really exciting. Not all folks that we can bring on TV with us, unfortunately, just because we only have so much space here, right? But we do have some other great faces. We've got Maggie. When you give our office a call or you need anything, Maggie's the one to take care of it. We have Kelvin as our CPA on staff, so he helps with all the tax planning that we do, making sure that we're being tax efficient with our strategies. And then of course too, we have Phil taking care of all our social media, our marketing, coordinating our events at the local colleges. And so we've got 4 new people at the office, which is great. We're really excited about, and we're looking to add a few more. So we're really excited about the trajectory that we're on. But for our show today, we're talking about that market volatility, right? And such an important piece, really, right? Because ultimately that market volatility can make you or break you, right? It's a great thing when the market's going up. It's a terrible thing when the market's going down. And if you are 5 to 10 years from your retirement, you're right in the retirement red zone, right? What happens in the market in that time frame can either create success for you or it can spell disaster, right? And so we want to make sure that we're being prepared properly to be able to make sure that our retirements or the planning that we do creates success for people despite what's happening in the market. And we're going to talk more about that. But Mark, maybe you could give us a little background on some of the downturns that the market has had and the impact that that has had on people's retirements.
Yeah, we do. Casey specifically does a wonderful job with a slide at our colleges, sequence of return risk, right? And in that, we talk about the most recent drawdowns that have happened. We go back basically to the year 2000. That was the big downturn because of the dot-com bubble when it broke everything, which is basically the NASDAQ, right? Then in 2008, we're all very familiar with the financial crisis that hit us. That was bad. On both of those, we lost close to 50% of our money in most planning and in most plans. Then, COVID hit, recently in 2019, 2020. So we've had some pretty significant drawdowns. And if you look back all the way to 1929, there's probably 16, maybe 17 big drawdowns, right, in market history. And if you retire close to any of those drawdowns, it, as you mentioned, it's going to spell disaster, right, for you, because the market happens, and if you're creating income from the market money, then you draw down or you take out a withdrawal for your retirement, for what you need to live and do the things you work your whole life for. it can be devastating, and we know the math. It doesn't work out if the timing isn't right. So the sequence of when those bad years happen is critical to everything. And the problem for all of the viewers and for me and for Kate and everybody else is, how do we know when those drawdowns are going to happen? That's the big, $1 million question that is out there, and nobody can tell you when that's going to happen. And if somebody's trying to tell you when it's going to happen, I'd run the other way, because nobody knows, including us, when those bad years or bad market spells are going to happen, and that's the concern we have for everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying all that, Mark, and we've had some great returns in the market, right, Steve? We've had some all-time highs that have been reached, and it seems like it's happening more frequently lately than ever, right? So how can somebody still create success in their retirement despite all that market volatility? How can they prepare themselves?
Yeah, and there's a rule, we like to call it the rule of 100. It's a simple way to think about how you should be, how your asset allocation should be.
Okay.
So if you're 55 years old, we'd be looking at 55%, you deduct that from the 100, so 55% would be in stocks and 45% would be in bonds.
Okay.
Bonds being safe.
Okay.
If you're closer to retirement, maybe 60, so then that would be 60% stocks and then 40% bonds for safety.
Yeah, and so really it ultimately comes down to how do we position the assets the right way,
exactly.
right? To make sure that we're creating that success. And do we use bonds? Do we use something else, right? Because there are other tools that can be used, and ultimately that's what a retirement plan really builds, is to make sure that you're investing in the right way at the right time, because the investments that made you successful when you were 40 and building for retirement are different than the investments that you need when you're 60, 65, and you start taking money out of those investments. And so this is your opportunity. If you've been watching the show for some time, you know probably pretty close to what I'm going to say. You see the number there on the screen, 844-342-7142. This is your opportunity to get a complimentary written financial plan put together by our team. We will sit down and talk about the risks that you're taking, the investments that you have, how you can be tax efficient, when you're going to start Social Security, how you're going to claim Medicare. All those questions that are swirling around in your mind, we will address. Along with that, we'll also include a copy of our new book, Break the Glass. You can pick that up when you come into the office and see us. Again, 844-342-7142. Don't change the channel. We're going to talk more about market volatility when we come back right here on Elevate Your Wealth.
At first, I thought I was going to become an iron worker, and after I graduated from high school, I drove from Virginia out to Wyoming, where my dad was at. My parents had just got divorced, and I watched my grandfather on my dad's side. My grandfather got Alzheimer's and spent the last several years of his life in a nursing facility, and I watched them be devastated at the cost at the time, because they didn't have any insurance and that created a real problem for them. They lost the bulk of their assets, liquid assets. They were able to retain the farm back in Iowa, but it taught me a lesson that I don't want to ever go through that. I don't want my children to have to go through this. And so I met an individual at an event that I was doing, a party basically at his house, and he invited me to come to his house the next day. And I decided to check it out, and he said, "Mark, you would be very good at this." And it was basically in the long-term care business, Medicare and Medicaid planning to a certain degree. So I help people get Medicare figured out, but then it also spurred me into the long-term care field as well. So again, that's really how I got into this business to begin with.
Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm your host, Casey Elkins, joined in the studio as always by Mark Stimpson and a fresh face, Steve O'Flynn, which we're very excited to have here at Elevated Financial Management. We are a local retirement planning firm, financial planning firm in Seattle. We love having you with us each and every week, again, here on Elevate Your Wealth. Today, we're talking about market volatility. What can you do to make sure that that market volatility plays in your favor versus playing against you? Now, I think think our next piece here is going to be that there's two different types or two different phases to our planning for retirement. Steve, could you elaborate on what those are and how they affect our audience?
Sure. You may not know it at home, but we have financial speak for this. So we have the first phase, that's the pre-retirement. You're aged 30, 40, 50. We call that the accumulation phase. So that's when you're earning your greatest money, you're building your big nest egg, ultimately for retirement and for income in retirement. Then when you finally stop working, that income doesn't come back in, we're looking at the distribution phase. That's when we're using all of your investment assets to then hopefully successfully fund your retirement. So accumulation phase and distribution phase. And they're two really important things to be mindful of, because it's a completely different phase of life and also a completely different strategy for both.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Steve just said here. It is critical to understand there's a massive difference between the accumulation phase and the decumulation phase, right? And there's so much more to coming, what we call down the mountain versus going up, right? The going up is fairly easy. You just want decent returns over a long period of time, right? Coming down brings in so many other facets that sometimes don't get talked enough about. Longevity risk, taxes. What do most planners tell their clients when they bring up a tax question? Most firms will say, we don't deal with tax questions. You're going to have to talk to your CPA or your tax preparer. Well, how does that always work out when we're trying to put together a total plan for someone, right? And then what happens about the medical piece when you have to go on Medicare? The long-term care planning aspect that can blow up a plan if we don't address that. Then we've got legacy planning. There is so much more to true retirement planning. That's why we want our viewers to really think about this. Your accumulation advisor, in most instances, is not probably going to be the one that you're going to want to use for true retirement planning. I think we've seen that. We know answers we've heard about over the last several decades. True retirement planning involves so much more than just building wealth, and I think we all would agree with that.
Absolutely, yeah, you're totally right. You know, realistically, accumulation phase, right, pre-retirement is single-faceted, right? You're really after just one thing. You're after the growth, the most growth that you can get. You're saving, you're building for retirement, and that's the right thing to do. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's when you approach retirement that suddenly, well, when do I start my Social Security? What am I going to choose for Medicare? How do I cover the long-term care? How do I make sure I'm tax efficient? How do I make sure that I don't outlive my money, right? That's the biggest concern that retirees have, is making sure that they don't outlive their funds. And so these are all important pieces. Now, we mentioned taxes, and so we've got a really helpful tool that we'll throw up on the screen here for you. It's called taxbillseattle.com. There's also a QR code that'll take you right to that website. If you'd like to see what could possibly be done to make sure that you're being tax efficient, or changes that you could make to hopefully lessen your taxes in retirement, that is a great tool for you. You can type it in, you can scan the QR code, and that's just part of what we offer at Elevated. Right now, we'll get into some other things here shortly, but again, coming back to the market volatility that we've been talking about, what happens is oftentimes we see people, they've been in the accumulation phase for 30 years, 40 years, right? And they kind of get stuck. They move into retirement and they get stuck in decumulation. And that can really spell disaster, right? Because as we mentioned, what made you successful up to retirement is not what will keep you successful in retirement. And so these are things that have to be addressed, right, Mark?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Case. One of the things that we've really come to understand over the last several decades is people that have done a wonderful job of saving, right? We have to help them become wonderful spenders. They don't want to spend sometimes. And everybody tends to pare down their lifestyle to what their income is, right? How many times have we seen someone come into our office, maybe have $1 million or $2 million in what we call the red bucket, the money in the market, and they have $5,000 a month in income, but they could easily have double that. They could have $10,000 a month, but they're afraid to ever touch the red money, right? But that's what a true plan is going to allow you to do. It's going to allow you to feel confident that you can spend that money and not run out. That's the key to this. And I can't overemphasize how important a true plan is, right? Because we see it all the time, and it's sad in a lot of ways, because they're living the what if retirement, right? What they dreamed and hoped would happen, they don't do it because they're so afraid they're going to run out of money, as we've been talking about. So again, a true plan is going to help eliminate all those concerns and feelings that, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What if? All of these things. We want to bury the what ifs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We want to put those to bed. So, we're talking about these downturns, market volatility, that kind of thing. And you know what? We've had some great years in the market recently, right, Steve?
Yeah, we have.
We've had some great performance.
Yep.
And oftentimes that can give people what we call recency bias, where they think it's going to continue on forever. And so we do like to talk about those previous market downturns because that's a reality, right? If we go back to 1929, there's been 16 bear markets. That means that they keep happening. It doesn't go up forever. So maybe you can just remind us a little bit of some of those downturns.
Exactly. Steve. It's been a while since we heard two words really, correction, two phrases, and bear market. We've been enjoying all the recent highs, and we talk again about accumulation phase and distribution phase. In the accumulation phase, you've got the time to ride that out. We have a lot of people coming to us with the accumulation phase plan, but what about when they get to the distribution phase plan? Does it account for these kind of drops? How would they feel and how do they feel? In 2008, the market dropped 51%, 48%, and then 27% before rebounding. They don't have the time to ride that out. So really, when they come to us, we want to address that and make sure that we have a plan in place for that.
Right, and it's the impact really that has, right? Because ultimately what it does is when we have those types of losses, emotionally, right? People that are in retirement and living off that nest egg that they've accumulated, when they have those losses in the market, they don't want to take the income out. It scares them, right? And rightfully so, because now you're amplifying that concern of running out of funds. Isn't that right, Mark?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. That emotional impact can be devastating, right? Because a lot of people will pull out and not never go back in. Look how many we saw. They got out of the market. They missed a complete year's worth of upward trends because they were so scared that they were going to get hit again. So a plan is going to allow you to do that. So if you're listening right now and you're concerned about market volatility, we've been talking about, what if you have Social Security questions? What about Medicare? Let our team help you. So pick up your phone, give us a call at 844-342-7142. Again, that number is 844-342-7142. Because if you come in, we're going to give you a copy of our book, Break the Glass. Everything that you're hearing on the show today and seeing on the show is in our book, and I think you'll find it a wonderful read. It's very short. You can do it in an hour, but give us a call. Let us help. If you've saved $250,000 or more, give us a call at 844-342-7142.
Thanks again, Mark. For our audience at home, you see the number on the screen, the QR code at the bottom. You can scan that and set a time for us to chat as well. We'd love to see you around the office. We'd love to give you a copy of our new book, Break the Glass, which we're very excited about, and to give you a custom-tailored written financial plan, as we always talk about this on the show right here at Elevate Your Wealth. Don't change the channel. Come right back. We're going to talk more about market volatility and what you can do to make sure that you're successful in your retirement. We'll see you shortly on Elevate Your Wealth. It's actually a pretty interesting story. My mom actually worked for a group of financial planners, and she'd worked for them since before I was born. Ultimately, I ended up working in industrial process control and instrumentation, which to most people means nothing and honestly sounds kind of boring, but it's pretty interesting. You get to see all the equipment that allows factories to make the things that they make. But as I was going through that, my wife got sick. And what I found was that nobody had answers about what the best route was medically to make sure that insurance was going to cover what we needed, that she could get the care that she needed. And so I realized that industry really is broken, right? There really isn't the care, and there's not somebody that you can lean on to help you make the right decisions. And so as time went on, what I found too is I've got a natural aptitude for finances, and a lot of my coworkers would come to me and ask me questions about how they should invest and what to do with their 401k, because it was something that I kind of naturally was involved with in my own way. As time went on, I found a way to be able to do that. I saved, I went back to school, and ultimately, Mark and I formed Elevated Financial Management, and here we are doing things, like I said, just a little bit different in Seattle. Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm your host, Casey Elkins, joined by Mark Stimpson and Steve O'Flynn from Elevated Financial Management. We're excited to have you here with us today. We're talking about market volatility. That's the topic of our entire show today. And if you've watched the show for some time, you know that rarely do we talk about the same topic for the entire show. But that's how important this is, because that market volatility, if it's not at the right time and in the right way, it can really derail your retirement. And so we work tirelessly to try and make sure that you, our clients, are protected when there is a downturn, and that you have alternatives, things that you can do to still be successful and have the income that you need in retirement. Now, Steve, as we were talking about this and kind of preparing, I thought this was great. You had a wonderful quote about really how a lot of retirees feel. Would you share that with us a bit, so that, fill our audience in on what that is?
We do see it an awful lot, the statistic. 47% of retirees say spending money in retirement gives them anxiety. And we speak about the green buckets and the red buckets. Typically when they come to us, their money is in the red bucket, so they're completely subject to market volatility. Yet they're in retirement. They need to draw an income, and like Mark says, when they live within their means at like $5,000 a month, when they could spend $10,000, why don't we give them the freedom to do that?
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's 53% of people that could be more satisfied in retirement.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and I love the way that you said that, right? Because I think that's the key, is it comes down to us as their planners, right? It really does. I mean, it's up to us to give our clients the license to go spend in retirement. And that's what a written financial plan does. That's why we're always talking about a written financial plan, because that's what gives you the ability to go spend, to go live your life, and to enjoy what you want without being concerned about what's going on in the market. And I love this. We've said this before, but you know, I think very few people dreamed of their golden years, and in those golden years, they want to wake up and check the stock market every day to determine if it's up so that they can go take the trip that they want to take. That's not on anybody's retirement list, right? No. They want to do what they want to do despite what's going on in the rest of the world. And that's really the key behind all of this, is income is what helps to make that happen, protection from downturns. And, you know, again, very simple illustration. If you need $8,000 a month to live your life and enjoy it and do whatever it is that you want to do, well, if you have $10,000 a month coming in and you know that's going to come in forever, well, there's not a whole lot to be worried about, right? That account value, that market volatility, those things, those problems, they really start to fade if we address that income problem and make sure that you have what you need in your circumstance, right, Mark? Yeah,
the ultimate goal at Elevated is to get rid of the what ifs. That truly is. We are concerned that so many people, as Steve mentioned a second ago, you're talking almost 50% of the people that they're anxious, and we know studies that are even a little bit higher than that. That the greatest fear that everybody has in going into retirement is they're going to run out of money. Right. So if we can put that to bed once and for all and show them that their income is going to last a lifetime, I can't overemphasize the importance of that, right? I think that's our goal. That truly is what we want every client to have, is guaranteed income for life. And I will say this, the clients that have at least one pension, some have 2 or 3, if you've got that plus Social Security, for most individuals, they never worry about what's going to happen each and every month. They don't look at the stock market. I have a client, or a person I know, he had $1 million in Ed Jones, but he also had over $13,000 a month coming in retirement. And so he didn't care. He admitted to me, he said, if I lose $1 million at Ed Jones, I don't care. Well, we know that's not true, but his point's well taken. He doesn't spend the $13,000 that he gets each and every month. So he does what he wants, when he wants. For me and for everybody at Elevated, that is true retirement freedom. I can't overemphasize how wonderful that is. So many people, when we put together a plan, they tell us, how it's like an atlas or a millstone around their neck has just been taken off, right? Because they have the freedom now to spend the money and live the life that they wanted to, because they know they can, and they're going to be successful and not run out of money. That truly is the goal here at Elevated Financial Management.
You're absolutely right. I'm in total agreement with you, Mark. Maybe to go back to this, Steve, when we think about it, that conventional wisdom about do you withdraw during a downturn or do you not, right? And I think that's a really important piece to the puzzle, because if the conventional wisdom is to not draw down during a downturn, well, then the question becomes, how do I still live the life I want to live, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about, because we see a lot of big box firms give that kind of advice. Well, we need to ride it out. It's just a paper loss, that kind of thing. But is that really the truth?
Yeah, and we probably don't have enough time to talk about sequence of return risk, but that is what happens at the beginning of your retirement in the market, if you're in the red bucket, will change the face of your retirement in its entirety. And we would go through that, I'm sure, in more time. So yeah, what we really want to do is remove that risk from the table for those that are entering into retirement.
Yep, that's it, right? And I'll say that the majority of what we do as a team day in and day out at Elevated is really about risk management. And we don't just mean risk management in the market. We also mean risk management when it comes to long-term care. We mean risk management about when to take your Social Security, risk management when creating income, all of these kinds of things. And that's it, right? We have to take the time to build that retirement plan to be successful as we move forward in our retirement. So, Mark, the phone number's on the screen. Could you share with our audience what they will expect, or what they should expect, if they give us a call? Yeah,
if you're watching the show today and you're really got a lot of questions that have come up, please pick up the phone and give us a call at 844-342-7142, because what our team's going to do is look at your very specific situation, and we're going to help to build a plan for you, where we're going to talk about taxes. We're going to figure out the best way and the timing to take Social Security. What do I do with Medicare? Then how do I move money to my children? So please pick up the phone. Again, the phone number is 844-342-7142. If you've saved at least $250,000 or more, come into our office, because you're also going to get a copy of our book, Break the Glass, which will really help solidify everything we've talked about on the show today. So again, call 844-342-7142. Let's have nothing but a conversation.
Thank you so much, Mark. Again, it's been really nice having you both here. Steve, it's been great having you here as well. We look forward to seeing you more on the show. Again, for our audience at home, you see the QR code, the phone number there. Don't hesitate. Give us a call. Exactly what you see here on the show is exactly what you'll see when you come into the office. We'd love to see you at Elevated Financial Management, and we love that you watch us every week right here on Elevate Your Wealth.